Hello, welcome to the next part of the Learn Energy Healing video series. Today we're going to introduce a new tool to use. So we'll be using a lot of methods in the coming videos so that you can verify what you are sensing. So the more different ways we can verify what we are sensing, it gives us more confidence in what we're doing. So today we're going to start using pendulums to highlight chakras. So in the next part of the video we'll actually be showing you how to use the pendulum, but first I'd like to talk about the pendulum themselves, how to select one. So there are a lot of things that you can use for a pendulum. You could use a normal crystal, for necklace that a lot of people have, and put it on a chain. You could do that. Or you could buy a purpose-built one like this. So ideally when you're choosing a pendulum to use, especially when you're starting, jaggedy edged or jaggedly shaped stone isn't the best to start with. You will notice that with this, when I turn it around, it's the same shape all the way around. So that it's better when it's swinging, it's better when it's picking up the energy, and it will move better. So this one is a crystal of some sort, obsidian maybe. Ideally I wouldn't suggest you start using crystals as your pendulums to start with. There's no problem using them as long as you know how to cleanse crystals, because crystals can be programmed with energy. They take on a vibration and they give off a vibration. That's why crystals are used in computer chips and any other sort of microchips in phones and watches and so on, because they can take on information and give out information. So when you are starting out, something more inert would be better than using a crystal. So what I would recommend to start with is using a wooden pendulum. So this is my wooden one I used in the past, and again, as you can see, uniform all the way around, and all pendulums ideally would have more of a point towards the bottom. And yes, wood is a bit more inert, so it's going to be less affected by vibrations around it, like EMFs or the vibration of your field, so that it's going to give a more consistent result when you are using them. This one has a metal chain, and if you were being really finicky about it, you could use a piece of string instead, because metal can transmute energies quite well as well. So that's what I recommend. I'll probably put a link in if I find where I bought this at the bottom of the video, so you can find where I bought mine from and where you might be able to buy them from. And obviously whenever you're buying a pendulum, you can always test them out. It's quite nice to go into shops to see how they feel. So that's that on pendulums. And when we're getting into the technique later on, what we will be finding out is that your energy field affects the pendulum has its own energy field, and of course there's the energy field, or the aura if you like, of the person that you're going to be using the pendulum on. So all three are interacting, and that's one of the reasons why you want something quite inert to start with when you're learning, so that there's less of an effect here. But your energy field is definitely affecting the movement of the pendulum. So if you have a lot of energy, you have a lot of energy moving through you in general, then you will tend to find that it will swing quite a bit. If you are quite low energy, then you may find that the pendulum moves very gently, very small movements. And of course, the person you are working with, if they have a lot of energy going through them, then it's even more likely to do this. And if they also have low energy, and you have low energy, then don't be surprised that the pendulum moves very small. Okay, so I'll see you in the next part of the video where we'll show you how to use a pendulum to sense the movement or not of chakras. Welcome to the next part of the video. I've got my wife here to help me demonstrate the chakras. So like I've explained in previous videos, there are many chakra systems. They're just models of how the aura works to help us with our logical minds and separating things into different things to help us understand that. So really all a chakra is something where mystics in the past discovered that you could introduce new energy or take energy out more easily in those particular areas. And it wasn't really until much more modern times, actually, especially in the West, that we started adding certain colours to auras and certain meanings to them. So always understand that it's a model. It's a useful model to help you explain things to other people, to help them understand. But you might find that models may be limiting in terms of helping people heal in future. So let's explain a little bit more about the 7 chakra system. So I've just folded a bit of paper here into a cone shape because the chakras, when they're working well, the energy moves in a circle, a bit like a cone shape. And the base chakra, as a lot of people call it, you would have pointing downwards, the cone spinning like so from the perineum downwards. Just a bit off the camera, unfortunately. And then the sacral chakra would be around about the pubic bone area, and the front of the sacral chakra would be like that. So it would be a cone shape here, and if I'm looking at the chakra, it should be spinning clockwise when it's healthy. So it would be spinning like this. And if I just turn my wife to the side a little bit, you will notice on the Barbara Brennan model of the 7 chakra system, and other people as well, they will have a rear to the chakra. Some models don't have a rear to the chakra, they only demonstrate the front. But I find it very useful to feel into the rear of a chakra as well. So with the sacral chakra, roughly the top of the sacrum area, and it would be a bit like this. Can you move forwards a little bit for me so they can see? And you would have like there. And again, as I'm looking at the chakra, so I'm looking from this angle, it should be spinning clockwise again, if it's a healthy working chakra. Okay, so no matter which side I'm looking at the chakra, it should always, from my point of view, be spinning clockwise. So I'm looking at the back of her body now, it should be spinning clockwise if it's working nice and healthy. And if I come around the front, again, as I'm looking at it from my point of view, it should be spinning clockwise. Okay, so that's the sacral chakra. The solar plexus chakra, where the solar plexus is, just beneath the sternum here. Again, as I'm looking at it from my point of view, it should be spinning clockwise, like so, if it's healthy. And again, around the back, if I turn my wife around, it should be spinning clockwise. One interesting point is when you look at different models, some models will have the rear of the chakra a little bit higher, slightly different height to the front of the chakra, but most models have it about the same height. Okay. So the next one would be the heart chakra. So where the heart is, behind the sternum, again clockwise if it's nice and healthy, and again at the back, same height as the heart, around about T4, T5 if you know the vertebrae, again should be spinning clockwise from our point of view as we look at the back. Throat chakra, where the voice box is, clockwise again, and the same at the back. The third eye, between the eyebrows, again spinning clockwise when it's nice and healthy, and again at the rear of the head, as you're looking at the rear of the head clockwise. And then the crown chakra, a bit like the base chakra, there's only one. So just like the base chakra, it should be spinning clockwise if you were looking at the bottom of the body. Same as if you were looking at the top of her head. It should be spinning clockwise if it's nice and healthy. Yes, thank you. A little bit off camera there. So yes, it should be spinning clockwise. And as we'll demonstrate in a moment, we will see that chakras aren't always spinning nicely clockwise, but there are other movements that can happen if there's some sort of defence or trauma, some sort of energetic blockage happening. So we'll get on to the next part and show you that. Okay, so here we have my wife lying down. So we're going to be using the pendulum I showed you earlier. And here is the cone shape of our chakra, and basically what we're going to be doing is dropping our pendulum in, relaxing our hand, and what will happen is the movement of the chakra as it's spinning around, if I can do that, as it's spinning clockwise, it will force the pendulum to move clockwise with it if it's a healthy chakra. So that's the analogy we're using. We're dropping our pendulum in, the chakra is spinning around clockwise, if I can do that with one hand, and then the pendulum in response will move with that energy and give us an idea of what's going on with the chakra. Okay? So, the first one we'll start with will be the sacral chakra, so around about the pubic bone, remember. And what we're going to do is slowly drop it in. I mean, I'm a little bit off camera here, but what we do is we slowly drop the pendulum closer to the body, because with very sensitive people, even a pendulum moving into their energetic field when they're being a bit more aware during the session may feel it. So we have a nice relaxed hand. Some people might find that having a little bit more of a length might be useful at this distance here, but I find personally holding part of it so that it's a bit shorter is more useful for me personally. So this is roughly where we have our second chakra, the sacral chakra. So I'm just slowly lowering it in, relaxing my hand. I'm intending to be curious, so I'm not introducing any bias. I'm curious and intending to see what's this chakra doing. And as you can see, it's very gently moving in a clockwise manner. From my perspective, it may not be quite so obvious from the angle of the camera. And as I leave it there for a little bit longer, it's getting a little bit bigger. Probably because we're paying attention to it and more energy is coming through it. Okay, so that's an example of how you would do it. So remember, the person you're working with has their own energetic field. This is the energetic field we're tuning into to see what's happening. The pendulum has its own electric energetic field, which is why we're choosing something that's as inert as possible for a beginner, so it doesn't affect things so much. And then I have an energetic field. So if my energy levels are quite low, and it can change from day to day, of course, and the person you're working with has quite low energy levels, then you might find that the pendulum doesn't really move much. It's quite a small movement. And as you can see, it's fairly small, look. If more energy is moving through the chakra, and I'm going to exaggerate with my hand here, then it will move bigger. And of course, if it's a very well-used chakra, they use it all the time, then it may be even bigger. And if my energy is quite strong this day, then it may be even stronger again. So the important point I'm making here is try not to base one measurement alone. So if it's quite strong here, it may be that it's quite strong here and here on several chakras, and that can give you an idea that, okay, maybe my energy is quite high and or the person I'm working on's energy is quite high. It doesn't necessarily mean if it's spinning around lots that it's an overused chakra. It's always good to compare one to the next so that you get more of an idea. Okay, so we've shown how a healthy chakra works, and this just happens to be a nice, open, clockwise moving chakra. But there are many other things that can happen. So if there's some sort of defense, some sort of blockage, all sorts of different things that can happen, then the chakra may not be working efficiently, and so the pendulum will move differently as it's being pushed by the energy. So I'll give you some examples, and I'm going to exaggerate with my hand. I'm not relaxing it this time, I'm just giving you an idea of what can happen. So we know this chakra was working well today, but there are other things that can happen. So one of the other things that can happen is it can go anti-clockwise or counterclockwise for our American friends. Okay, so some people would call that a closed chakra. I personally wouldn't, because there's obviously energy moving there, but it's going counterclockwise, anti-clockwise. And this suggests that there is energy moving in and out, but that because it's moving counterclockwise, it suggests that there could be a negative experience related to that chakra. So we can go much more deeper into meanings at a future date, but just so you know that this means that there's energy moving there, it's active, it's an active chakra, but there could be some sort of negative experience happening because it's going counterclockwise. So by the way, these movements are based on observations from Piqueiros. So I'll put some information and links to Piqueiros. This was the person who linked the movements of the chakra to certain emotional and mental states, and came up with this particular model of how to read chakras. So in his model, clockwise in a circle is a nice healthy chakra. Counterclockwise or anti-clockwise in a circle suggests that it's balanced, but there may be a negative experience related to that chakra. One of his other observations was straight lines. So if there's a lot of defense happening at a particular chakra, then you may get a straight line like this. So I'm using my hands to create this movement, of course. I'm not relaxing my hand again. So if it's going up and down the body, like this, that suggests that the energy is being diverted up and or down the central power current. So in other words, the energy is invested in the central power current, so you're more invested in the ether. So this could suggest to me that at this particular chakra, they're in defense and they're away with the fairies. So they're in the spiritual world. They're not really so much in this world. They're avoiding whatever trauma may be related to the chakra by being out of this reality to some degree or another. You can also get a straight line side to side. So this is also a very defensive pattern. So the energy is being pushed to the sides. So rather than being invested into the spiritual world like an up and down movement would be, they're being very defensive but still here in the physical world. So you can also get movements diagonally. So with a straight line movement like this, so I'm not sure how clear that is on the camera to you, but the pendulum is moving up to my wife's left-hand side. So my right, but it's her left-hand side. So it suggests that there's a defense going on here and that she's more dominant on the left-hand side. So there's more energy being invested on the left compared to the right if it's going up to her left. So, very brief explanation of left and right. So someone's left-hand side is more related to the feminine and the right-hand side is more related to the masculine. So lots of different things related to feminine and masculine, but I'm going to simplify things by saying that the feminine side generally, just for today, we're going to say that's more recessive, and the right-hand side would be more active. So if it's going up to the left here in a straight line, we know it's very defensive with a bias towards the feminine, so the recessive side. So maybe she's defending herself, but not being overt about it. Maybe sitting quietly rather than being active with this defence. If it was going more this way, diagonally up to her right, that suggests she's being very defensive, but much more active in her defence. Okay, we also get elliptical movements. So this is a combination of going up to one side and it spinning in a circle. So let's give you an example of that. So let's go clockwise. So again, I'm creating this movement with my arm. So I don't know how clear that is on the picture there. I'm trying to make it an oval shape. So it's clockwise, but it's in an oval shape. And it's going up to her left. My right, but it's her left. So spinning clockwise, we know that that's suggestive of a more healthy chakra if it's going in a circle. So a circle really means a balance between up and down and left and right, so that's why we get the circle shape. But if there's a bit more of a dominance of the feminine, the left-hand side, then you will find that it will go in an oval up to her left-hand side. So this suggests that her chakra is open, she's having a positive experience, but there's a dominance of the recessive. So she may be having an enjoyable time, but she's not very active compared to, again, I'm going to try and create the movements. Okay, so we're going clockwise, but the pendulum is going up. Ooh, I can't really do that very well, can I? Up to her left. Okay, so if you imagine that it's semicircular movement up to her right, my left, up to her right, that suggests she's having a positive experience because it's going clockwise, but there's a dominance of the masculine, so she's very active. There's more active rather compared to recessive in that experience. It's not quite so balanced. And of course we can get it going anti-clockwise or counterclockwise as well. So we're going counterclockwise. I'm not very good at trying to pretend these movements. So it's going anti-clockwise up to her right, my left. So that suggests a dominance on her right-hand side, and it's anti-clockwise. So anti-clockwise suggesting that she's having a more negative experience. And because it's going up to her right, there's a dominance of the active, so the masculine. And of course, we can also have counterclockwise, anti-clockwise, going up to her left. Negative experience where she's being more recessive more than active. The only other movement, or should I say lack of movement, is where you put your pendulum in and it's completely still. So I don't know if I can keep it completely still, but when it's completely still, not moving, that suggests that the chakra is closed. There's no movement of energy in or out, and therefore it's not pushing the pendulum around. So this would be much more what I would call a closed chakra. So if you drop your pendulum in, and there's no movement at all, even after a few seconds, then that suggests a still chakra. And if left unchecked, if that chakra stays like that, then that could cause a disease quite quickly, because there's no energy coming in or out, and therefore that part of the body will suffer. Bear in mind, of course, like I was saying in an earlier video, the chakras, just like the aura, are in a constant state of flux. So just because you drop your pendulum in and it's completely still, or maybe it's going anti-clockwise, suggesting a negative experience, doesn't mean to say that it's always like that. You're taking literally a snapshot of what's going on with the chakras and the aura as you are feeling into it. And of course, you may notice if you hold your pendulum in a particular chakra for long enough, you may notice it change from one to another. So don't worry too much if you do come across something where it's completely stopped like this. It could simply mean that they're just going through something at this particular time, and it will automatically resolve at a later date. Okay, so let's just do a bit of an example. Let's drop my pendulum in, gently from the top, so we're not interfering too much, relaxing my hand, setting the intention. The intention is very important. Setting the intention to be curious and to see what's there. So again, we're getting a nice circular movement. Not particularly strong, so that suggests either me or my wife is quite low on energy, even though it's a nice, positive, balanced experience. So yes, I repeat, intention is important. The most difficult thing when using a pendulum to read chakras is being unbiased. So if you already have an impression of someone being a certain way, being emotional or mental in a certain way, and you expect a particular chakra therefore to behave a certain way, then you are already biased. And you may subconsciously be putting that movement into your hand without realizing. So it's very important that you set the intention to be curious and open to what is there. So we're doing the solar plexus chakra now. Again, not much energy flow here, but it's picking up. And again, we're getting a nice circular movement in a clockwise manner. So she's nice and balanced and having a positive experience there. Maybe because of this video, who knows? Last time we tried this video, it was a bit more chaotic. So let's have a look at the heart. Let's drop it in nice and slowly. Again, relaxed with my hand, seeing what's there. Okay, so it's clockwise. Not quite as circular this time. So it's a clockwise movement, and it's going up to her left. So she's having a positive experience therefore, but there's a bit of a dominance on her left-hand side, so she's being very receptive and enjoying herself, which makes sense because she's having to be quiet for this video, isn't she? So she's having a positive experience and just letting things happen rather than being active. So that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, and let's slowly drop in to the throat chakra. Again, nice and relaxed, setting the intention to see whatever is there. So, nice circular movement again, clockwise. So, it's a shame the other video didn't work because I could have shown you a lot more different movements the other day. Okay, nice and gently coming out as well as in. And let's bring the pendulum over the sixth chakra. Okay, so clockwise again, almost a straight line. And we're going up to her right hand side. So she's having a positive experience because it's going clockwise, but it's in an oval shape. And it's going up to her right hand side. So suggesting that she's having a positive experience through this particular chakra, through her thoughts, and she's being very active in her thoughts. There's more of a dominance to the right side, so she's being very active in her thoughts, compared to being balanced with her thoughts, being both receptive and active. So maybe she's thinking about what I'm saying. Okay. And the tricky bit for some people is the next part, okay? So you will notice, like I said earlier, so the crown chakra would be pointing upwards and the base chakra would be pointing downwards. So they're not facing upwards so that we can drop our pendulum in and for the pendulum to be affected to it. So this is another practice of our intention to put our pendulum in the position of her crown chakra, like so, and setting the attention for the pendulum to move as if it was pointing upwards. So we're setting our attention, we're pretending that the chakra is facing upwards like that, whereas in fact it's actually that way around. So a good practice of intention here. So again, I'm dropping my pendulum in nice and slowly, setting the intention to be curious, open to whatever is there, and reading it as if the chakra was pointing upwards. Okay, so getting more defensive movement here. So it's in a straight line and slightly up to her left hand side. So we know she's being a bit defensive in terms of being connected to spirit, which is the crown chakra a lot, connecting to her knowing, and she's in a more recessive rather than active state. And of course it could change if we stay there and if she focuses on this chakra. Same again with the base chakra. Let's just slowly drop the pendulum in, and again the chakra points this way, but we're pretending that it's pointing upwards, setting our intention so that we're measuring it as if it was pointing upwards. Dropping in, relaxing the hand, being curious, setting the intention to read whatever's there, and as if it was pointing upwards. So we're getting an oval shape again. So it's clockwise, a positive experience, but it's going left to right. So it's balanced left to right. So there's no dominance over recessive or active, but it is a defensive pattern slightly, but generally a positive experience. Okay. You'll notice earlier I showed chakras in the Barbara Brennan and other models that there are chakras at the front and at the back of the body. So what you can do to measure these particular chakras is obviously to turn the person over, so you get them lying on their front, and then read it that way. So again, as you are facing the back of their body, a nice healthy chakra should be clockwise and in a circular motion. Okay, so that would be the easy way of measuring the back of the chakras, turning them over and doing it that way. So we're going to do it the other method. So again, using intention, we're going to be measuring the rear of the chakras without turning the person over. As you can imagine, in a healing session, it's advantageous to do that because you're not moving the person around too much and causing them any bother or discomfort. If they're nice and relaxed, you don't really want to bother them and stir them up. So, what we do is, if I'm heading towards the second chakra here, so we drop it in, just like we were doing when we were measuring the front of the chakra. The only difference this time is I'm setting the intention to measure it as if it was the rear of this chakra. So the front of the chakra is here, but I'm imagining that she's already turned over, and it should still be a clockwise movement if we imagine that her body has turned over. Okay? So we just drop it in, relaxing my hand, again being unbiased, setting the intention to be curious, to see what's there rather than what I'm expecting, and of course setting the intention to measure the rear of the chakra. And we're getting a circular motion, and as you may notice, it's going from circle, and every now and again it looked a little bit more left and right, and it's settling now into a much more circular clockwise motion. So we know she's having a positive, balanced experience at the rear of the chakra. very, very briefly, the front of the chakras, from the second upwards to the sixth, the front of the chakra is more a measure of the quality of the energy of the chakra. The rear of a chakra is much more to do with how much energy a person has relating to a chakra. The front is also more the receptive side, more the emotional side too, whereas the rear of the chakras are much more the active side. So that's very briefly with those chakras. Obviously the base chakra and crown chakra don't have that front and back aspects to them. That's very briefly what is represented, comparing the front and the back. Right, hope you enjoyed that introduction to using the pendulum to read chakras. And I hope you join me in the next video, because we're going to be using the pendulum to verify what we're going to be sensing with our hands. So we're going to be combining the lesson of learning to feel the aura with our hands so that we can start to sense the chakra, and then using the pendulum to verify it. So if you like these videos, please do make sure you click like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.